name is Walter Hoge. I go by the name of Rich. My father, who was an MD, also goes by Walter Grimmett. His mother's maiden name was Grimmett. I was born in Mckeester, Idaho. I lived and was raised in Blackfoot, Idaho through high school. And that is where my parents also practiced medicine, and also my grandfather was a dentist in Blackfoot, Idaho. I grew up right next to Blackfoot River. On the other side of the Blackfoot River was the Fort Hall Indian Reservation. My mother used to tell me stories about how her family were involved with the Indians and how much respect she had for the Indian nation. So I've been lucky to be able to live in that atmosphere too. They're very close to nature. I'm a veterinarian. I graduated from Purdue University. And I have been practicing at Camden Pet Hospital for almost 50 years. Becoming a veterinarian, the excitement was learning how these animals actually function and how to try to help them be able to get well or prevent them from getting sick. Now I'm at the stage to where the most exciting thing to me is the people I've known for 2 and 3 generations that are actually my family now, because all my kids have left. They don't live in the area. So every day I go to work, I have some special experience with people I've known for a long time and still have an opportunity to be able to help their pets. It's been just a wonderful thing. My book, Mckeaster Valley, is a story about an adventure that I had going to the Sierra Mountains with my dog, Bo. And there I found a pleasant place called Mckeaster Valley and Mr. Mckeaster, and we had many adventures there. And I learned a lot about my life and a lot about the sweet things that can happen if you're doing the right things and the opportunities you have to help nature and also the citizens around you. Mckeaster Valley has been my first book, and I've recently published a new book called Thoughts on My Thoughts, the tales that wag this veterinarian. I was not thinking at all about doing any of this. I'm a veterinarian. I've done some publishing of research articles during graduate school, but nothing like this that I'd ever done. Well, I wrote the book for my children. It all started years ago, and of course, when I used to come home from work, I had 5 young children, and they would come and lay down on bed with me while we were trying to get them to go to sleep, and I would tell them stories. And I would start the stories, I'd say, a long, long, long time ago in a far, far, far away land. And I used to tell them stories about Mckeaster Valley and Mr. Mckeaster and the things that he did in Mckeaster Valley. And those seemed to be the ones that they liked the most. The kid's mom, she had cancer and she passed away. It seemed almost like a spiritual experience. So all of a sudden I had this inspiration. I needed to write this down. And so I wrote Mckeaster Valley. I did it in about 2 weeks, and I played with it for a while. When Easter time came, I wrote on 9.5 by 11 paper of the transcript of that. I gave it to my kids. I'm not sure how many of them read it, but Shauna, after my wife passed away, Shauna, we were married, and she read that story to her mother.
She loved the story, and when she heard the story and I read the book to her, she just was fascinated by it, and she thought that it needed to be published and so other people could share it. He was hesitant. He said, "Oh, no one is interested in hearing my story that I used to tell my children." And my mother was the one that said, "That's not true. Other people's children need to hear this story."
And her mother said, "You need to have this published." And I said, "Yeah, sure. That's just what I do in my life. I'm a veterinarian. Sure, I want to publish this." No, I mean, and she kept after me. And so finally I contacted someone to help me write McEaster Valley. It took us a while to get it published, but the publishing of the book was done. And that was been about 10 years ago. So, and then other people picked up on it. I had people call me about it, making comments that they thought it really should be possibly even like a kid's movie and things like that. And they wanted to do things go farther with it. I think that I wrote the book as much for me as I did for my children. I realized that I was trying to imagine the most perfect place to be, a place where you're helping people, you're not having receiving income for what you're doing, and also you're helping them. Other people have an enjoyable time enjoying a season, and also there they live forever. You're able to and you're the best you can be. In my book, they're definitely not the best looking, but spiritually and mentally, they're the best people that you can imagine on the earth. I think it was written as much for me as what I would ideally like to have with my life or in the hereafter. I think that's the thing too, that my thoughts here, this is something I could go to and contribute to, that it was a lot about what I really needed at that time in my life where I lost my spouse. I suddenly found myself alone. And I think anybody who has children realizes that once they get away from home, they start going to school, they start having families. Then as we get older, we're not needed. And we need things to do to keep us busy and active. Even though I'm still working as a veterinarian, I'm not nearly as busy as I was when I had children. Well, I wrote the book for my children, and like I say, I'm not sure how much they really enjoyed it. And I understand it because our children are busy. I remember when I was a child doing the same thing, and some of the things that came out that I thought were important to my parents later. And so that got the initiation to go ahead and actually have it published in a book, because I thought then at least maybe their children or maybe their children's children might read it someday. What I'm really enjoying now, I got started about 10 years ago. An individual in our church, he said, you know, we have people that are not active, they don't want to come out, we need to keep track of them and help them. Well, you go knock on their doors, you try to call them, or you send them emails and that's not very fulfilling. So I started writing letters. I tried to write letters a little bit about myself and other things. And what it ended up turning into is I started writing stories about things involving animals and my experiences with them.
Monthly newsletters that he sends to people from our church congregation. When we talk about the letters, we have other people say, oh, well, you don't send me a letter. Couldn't you send me the letters too? And it's grown to a point where he sends approximately 40 letters each month out to family and friends and past clients and people from our church.
I'm really enjoying that and trying to have things of truth, good stories about animals that people that can learn about the animals, about nature. The book that I just published, almost every one of those articles, I had Dana at work read them. She would read these articles and tell me what she thought of them. Currently, Shauna reads, she goes through and looks at it, and so I always ask her if it makes sense and if it's something she thinks is stimulating. Daily routine was kind of like this morning. BB woke us up at 4:30 in the morning. So I hooked her on a leash and we walked down to go outside and take care of number one and number two with her, just to come back to bed. And so I went back, and at that time, I usually will pick up my computer and sit on the bed with me and spend time oftentimes working on an article or doing research on an article.
Rich, to me, is a very fascinating individual. He's a very, I don't want to say analytical, but he's always searching for information and looking for new ideas and getting answers to different stories and tying it together with experiences that he's had in his life. And it's always exciting to hear what he's thinking.
We do things together. We've done a lot of traveling, and the place we enjoyed going most is to Alaska. We do Alaska cruises. I think it's a beautiful area to go to and very relaxing, but we have done cruises and traveled around the areas of Idaho and also Utah, those areas, visiting relatives and doing other things. With our children, usually I see my children that live in Morgan Hill. We'll oftentimes go out for dinner and things like that. We do Sundays together, and we also we're involved with children as well as we're involved with ourselves doing things. If I'm outside in the yard working, she's out there helping with the flowers, gardening, watering. I do a lot of watering and things like that, and that's a really important thing, because if you don't marry your best friend, it's really tough and life can be very miserable. And Shauna, she's been a great friend of mine. She's been a great supporter. As you can tell, picking up that script and reading it to her mother was something she did not have to do. I become a storyteller and I never thought I would. Nature is one of the most interesting stories there is, and if I'm telling about nature, to me, I'm a storyteller. Hopefully the stories are a learning experience about nature, and that people appreciate nature and not abuse it.
I'm very excited about McEaster Valley, so I'm glad to see that maybe there's some interest in it, in the direction that I always felt that the vein of the story is so important. I would invite you to buy the book and share it with your families and enjoy it yourselves. It's very uplifting reading.
I'd like to invite you to explore eastern McEaster Valley. You can find information on Amazon.com as well as other major bookstores. I have a website, walterhodgebooks.com, where you can learn more about this book. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.